Everyone in the Middle Ages was filthy, right? Dirty peasants, smelly nobles, and a complete fear of bathing. That's the stereotype. But what if we told you that medieval people actually cared about hygiene, just in ways that might surprise you? From perfume nobles to peasants scrubbing with herbs, hygiene wasn't absent, it was just different. Today, we're diving into what it really meant to be clean in the Middle Ages, from castle to cottage. And yes, we'll talk about chamber pots, lice, and how Queen Elizabeth of Hungary helped invent medieval skincare. Peasants didn't have access to marble baths or rose-scented oils, but that doesn't mean they gave up on hygiene. Rivers and streams were used for occasional bathing and washing clothes. In towns, public fountains and communal wash areas were vital. Bathing was less about luxury and more about practicality. Many peasants wiped down with cloths, vinegar rinses, or a mixture of water and herbs. Soap made from animal fat and wood ash was harsh, but it got the job done. Lice and fleas were a problem, so hair was often kept covered or cut short. Linen undergarments, worn beneath clothes, absorbed sweat and were changed and washed more often than outer garments. Peasants brushed their teeth with sticks, salt, or herbal scrubs. It might sound crude, but it was effective for the time. Rosemary, sage, and mint were used to freshen breath. Nobles had more access to water and servants, but that didn't always translate to better hygiene. Bathing was often a luxury event. Portable wooden tubs were set up in private chambers, filled with scented water, and surrounded by entertainment. Queen Isabeau of Bavaria, for example, was known for extravagant bath rituals that included rose petals, music, and perfumes. Rather than frequent full baths, nobles preferred to cleanse their hands and faces with scented cloths. Perfumes and pomanders, small balls of herbs and spices, were worn or carried to cover any body odors. Hair was brushed frequently and sometimes treated with powders and herbal rinses. Clothes were changed regularly, though actual body washing was less frequent. Fun fact, Eleanor of Aquitaine, queen of both France and England, maintained a court culture known for its refinement, and chroniclers noted that she upheld standards of personal cleanliness unusual for the time. During the 12th to 14th centuries, bathhouses were common across medieval Europe. Even in towns, men and women sometimes bathed together, and bathhouses often included hot water, steam rooms, and even massages. In cities like Paris and London, bathhouses were so popular that entire streets were named after them. But by the late 14th and 15th centuries, the church began to associate bathhouses with immorality and prostitution. After outbreaks like the Black Death, fear of water opening the pores to disease caused many people, especially the elite, to avoid bathing entirely. Cleanliness became more about changing linen and masking odors than using soap and water. Still, famous figures like St. Louis IX of France were known for bathing regularly. He reportedly bathed twice a year, which was considered unusually clean. Toileting was basic. Chamber pots were standard, even for royalty, and their contents were often tossed into the street or into cesspits. In castles, garter robes, stone chutes built into the walls, emptied into the moat or pits below. Some castles even lined garter robes with herbs like lavender to mask the smell. Tooth care existed. Medieval people didn't have toothbrushes, but they did have toothpicks, cloth scrubs, and mouthwashes made from vinegar, wine, or herbs. Noblewomen used crushed coral, sage, and mint to clean their teeth. Queen Elizabeth of Hungary famously commissioned the first known alcohol-based mouthwash using rosemary, known as the Hungry Water, which later became a popular perfume. Monasteries were among the cleanest places in medieval Europe. The rule of Saint Benedict emphasized physical cleanliness alongside spiritual purity. Monks washed their hands and feet regularly, bathed weekly, and maintained strict routines around hygiene. Monastic hospitals practiced basic sanitation, clean linens, herbal rinses, and airflow in sick rooms. Doctors of the time believed in balancing the four humors: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm, and that meant paying attention to hygiene, smells, and diet. Bad smells were thought to carry disease, so people burned incense and wore herbs as a barrier. Even with all we've covered so far, some of the most eyebrow-raising medieval hygiene practices are tucked away in personal habits, royal quirks, and domestic customs you might not expect. King Richard II of England had a dedicated groom of the stool. Their primary role was assisting the monarch with bodily functions, including toileting, and to manage the king's private chamber and expenses. The king also had a bathhouse built inside Westminster Palace. Isabella of Castile was rumored to have only bathed twice in her life, once at birth and once before her wedding, though this is likely exaggerated. Nobles used scented vinegar to clean surfaces and wash hands before meals. Some homes had dedicated sweat rooms, which were like an early version of a sauna. Herbs like rosemary, bay leaves, and thyme were stuffed into clothing to repel lice and mask smells. Hygiene wasn't uniform. Some were cleaner than others. But most people, regardless of class, tried to be clean in their own way. So, were medieval people really disgusting? Not exactly. They had fewer resources, but they did what they could with what they had. Cleanliness was shaped by class, climate, belief systems, and available tools. Sure, some habits were rough by today's standards, but others, like using herbs for skincare, vinegar rinses, or ritual washing, weren't that far off from modern wellness trends. Next time, we're exploring medieval beauty standards, from lead-based face paint to plucked hairlines. Hit subscribe and let us know in the comments, would you survive medieval hygiene?